Hello and welcome to Game Informer. We are doing a making of Game Infarcer cover. Now you may think those sound similar, but Game Infarcer is Game Informer's annual parody magazine that we do for April Fools. I am joined here by the artist of the cover, Zander Cannon.
Hello.
And this guy called Jeff Cork.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, he... What's your title, Jeff, actually?
My real title?
Yeah, is that like senior
editor?
Okay, senior editor Jeff Cork.
Stick around a while. That happens.
So we are here and talking to Zander about how this year's cover came to be, which we've done this for several years now, I think. It's always an interesting look where we pat ourselves on the back for being very funny.
Yeah. I think ultimately Zander drawed it. The end, right? That's how it came to be.
Thanks for watching. See you next time. So I don't know. I guess let's dig into this, Zander. So what we're looking at a more final version of the art.
Yeah,
here.
this is what I turned in, and we should probably just go through the process of the thing. I mean, you guys came up with the idea, independently of me.
Yeah. So, and what we're looking at here, this final version, is some weird mashup of, so here's the final cover with all the text and stuff. This is a mashup of like Spider-Man, Red Dead, and God of War, with, the main joke being like, poor Spider-Man just got overshadowed last year. Like in any other year, Spider-Man would have been like a heavy-hitting Game of the Year contender, but instead it came out the same year as God of War and Red Dead and sort of got overshadowed. So the joke being, this Spider-Man is now taking a bunch of elements from all those games so no one can ignore it.
Some heady stuff.
Real advanced. We spend hours and hours talking about this.
We actually do, but everyone's getting so mad, and then yeah.
I feel like this year's, there are some years that we spend a lot of time in those meetings trying to like hammer out what a good, like, you'd be surprised at how hard it is to come up with something that actually like works really well as a visual joke, not just, hey, here's a video game joke.
Right? Yeah, and you're also trying to come up with something that kind of captures the zeitgeist of the moment, Yeah, you're not just going like, what if Mario had a fatality?
Remember Bushido Blade? Let's make a joke about that.
Exactly.
So,
well, there was an Assassin's Creed one years ago that heavily leaned on Dawson's Creek, which had been off the air for a decade. Maybe?
Yeah, that's true. That was, but Assassin's Creed was very hot.
That's true.
So,
all right.
Was that yours then, Joe? I'm taking it.
Creed sounds a little bit like Creek, so it was Assassin's Creek.
All right. Yeah, okay. Now it makes sense.
No, I understand how that might have gone over your head. It's complicated. But so, like Zander said, we sit down and have a meeting and just sort of come up with the idea, and then we chat with him about the sort of visually how that gets represented. But I mean, also in the last few years, I feel like it's a little more collaborative, even with you, in terms of coming up with like the jokes and stuff too. Like we usually have a list of things, but you add your own sort of flair on some of these too, which I appreciate.
Well, and a lot of it is like, what's going to look nice, but also what's going to look like a real game that has a lot of, a real game layout, but it has a lot of jokes in it. And I mean, part of it is like, I hold my breath every year because it's like, oh, I hope it's something that I've played or that's fun to draw at all. Like, because if it was going to be, PUBG or something like that, it's like, oh, a bunch of people in regular clothes with guns, in Mario World or whatever it would be. But like this year, I was so happy because it's like, well, I hadn't played Red Dead 2, but I'd played Red Dead 1, and and you can pick up the nuances pretty quick. And I played Spider-Man through to 100% in every iteration.
Yeah.
And I was, probably 3/4 of the way through God of War. And so it's like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Like, and they're all super visual. They're all, they all have like color schemes and like a visual style that's distinct to each of them. And
yeah,
it was great. I was super excited.
So we'll end up coming back to this final version to talk about it more later. But I want to see
let's see.
What's the like early version of this after our first meeting?
Well, the first is like getting approval from Marvel, getting their blessing. Right? They were like super excited.
Cap in hand. Oh,
we really should have thought about that a little more carefully.
Well, what can you do now?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I do this weird thing. I do it all digitally because it's just faster and it's easier to change at various stages.
Real quick, have you always done the Game Infarcer covers digitally?
Always the colors, but not the art. I think that the last one that I did anything on paper was like the Walking Dead one. It was several years ago. And even then it was like I had done it in pencil on paper and then I inked it digitally and did everything else. And at that point it was like I'm putting together so much stuff and it's so dependent on color, like that it really didn't make sense to be doing it on paper. Yeah. And I don't have a big aftermarket for original art sales. I mean, I might, but
you ended up selling the BioShock original art one, right?
Yeah. And I priced it too low, and I was just so mad. I just kicked myself for like weeks afterward. I like that one.
And we should also say, Zander, I mean, we've been doing. I always forget to count, but like we've been collaborating with you on these covers for like 11 or 12 years at this point.
I think 2006 or 5 was the first one.
And since then, you've become a real big deal.
Oh yes, a very. So
this has been very lucrative for us.
We were in on the ground floor with Zander Cannon.
Right. Well, and I am by no means a big deal, and I think that it's so fun that this is the thing that I've looked forward to it every year because it's like, there were years and years where I was doing storyboards for like PSAs, like in your workplace about how to keep like beryllium, like toxic beryllium from leaving the work site. So, it's like, that's what I was doing. And then it's like, you call and it's like, I think we want to do a mashup between Bloodborne and Dr. Seuss. And I was like, okay, I'll be there early. And
how
maybe
much
we can
beryllium
hang out
do I
after.
need to draw? Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's always been an awesome thing where it's just, and of course, like I have to justify buying a video game machine every year, and there we go.
There you go.
There it is.
It's part of your job,
right? I'd be like, turn off Fortnite. My son, just turn off Fortnite. I gotta play some.
I just bought this video game machine.
What's this video game machine?
As all the adults say. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Okay, so I had originally kind of thought that I wanted to make Spider-Man like a. I thought that we should break it up into like, well, here's him as Red Dead Redemption Spider-Man, and then maybe God of War Spider-Man would be in the background. Mm-hmm. Like that, and kind of make it not all in one sort of physical space, but more of a like a movie poster sort of.
Kind of like what we did with the Luigi one last year, where there are a bunch of little like, picture vignettes.
Yeah.
Because conceptually, this could have been a huge disaster. You know what I mean? Because like to convey this visually, like you said earlier, is very difficult. Yeah. It's a real weird idea.
And usually I have a pretty good idea. This took a couple where I really had to think about it a little bit, and I would watch Joe's face too, as when I would suggest like an alternate version, and I'd see his face kind of falling, and I'd be like, okay, I don't want to make Joe sad.
Oh, no, this is before you knew that he was behind Assassin's Creek, though.
That was not me.
Recalibrate next year.
That was not me. I'll leave blame for that one on Reiner. So yeah, because I remember we were one thing that you were wary of when we were talking about this was the idea of Red Dead, Spider-Man, and God of War being like all three visually mixed together. So instead the solution, even though that's happening with Spider-Man himself, the solution in the background is there's sort of half is like God of War and Spider-Man and half is Red Dead and Spider-Man. Yeah. But there's no like God of War meets Red Dead stuff.
Yeah. And we can, and I'll show you like what I was thinking when I get to the because it's like, since it's all in one space, it was a little bit tricky to do that. So I decided to do it, obviously by sides. And I didn't divide Spider-Man by sides, but I thought it was, since he's in the foreground, he's more clear. Like, oh, well, the gun is obviously Red Dead, and the Blades of Chaos. Yeah. It's pretty clear what's what. And then on each side, later on, I sort of made the color schemes pretty clear. But anyway, yeah, here's where like the gags are. And so we've got things like, Miles Morales as the kid,
Atreus,
yeah, and then the Mimir head on his was Spider Ham, and that's that's my favorite. That's just.
I mean, as I recall, that happened because you said that you've just always wanted to draw Spider-Ham.
That's exactly right. Because you could obviously choose anybody, and it's like, no, we're choosing Spider-Ham. And then I think at one point somebody, when we get to the final art, I'll go into that. But and then I wanted a horse with a scorpion tail, like from the scorpion. Anyway, yeah. And I think I had to lean on you guys a lot about the characters in Red Dead because I was familiar with the concept, but I hadn't played 2, so.
So we have like Dutch and Sadie, I think, are the ones that are sort of prominent. We'll see them later.
Yeah.
How much easier would your life be if our magazine was printed horizontally?
A lot of them would be. It would be simpler. I mean, it's not like I'm not used to it, but
yeah.
But
I got comic books, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it,
yeah, comic books and magazines.
Now that I lend this 1 second of thought, yes, no, yes.
Maybe you should make a calendar. That might be good.
Right. But yeah. So anyway, and I make these all in different layers and different color codes so that I can move them around and. I mean, it was pretty solid. It was pretty well put together. But and then I did that, and then of course there's all these little things like reminding myself which characters that I'm going to put in there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we could probably skip to the much better looking.
Have you drawn Spider-Man a bunch? Is he like a character that you've loved drawing?
Are you just doing this so I can tell the story that I was about to tell?
I hope so.
I've been drawing comic books for 25 years, and I've never drawn Spider-Man.
Really?
I mean, I've drawn him.
Yeah.
For myself.
Yeah.
But I've never been hired to draw Spider-Man. And so I was super excited. I was just like, I've never drawn Spider-Man. And the Spider-Man of the game is pretty close to the classic Spider-Man. He's, other than that white spider thing, it's like he's basically the 60s Ditko version. And
what could we have said that would have been like, we want Spider-Man, but that would have been disappointing?
Like with the spider armor from the 90s. Did you ever see that one? Yeah. Not the ones that are in the movies where he's kind of cool and sleek, but it looked like a silver corn cob kind of.
Cool.
Yeah, that would have disappointed me. I would have been like, very well, I will do it. I'm a professional, but I wouldn't have been very happy about it.
All right.
But so this is take out the color. Here's the line art, and so. This is
So when you do the line, like you're kind of going over your old work. You're not like, when you do this layer of it, you're not just drawing black on white here.
I'll have the pencils, as under it, and then I don't work. And this is in Photoshop, but I work in Manga Studio or what's called Clip Studio Paint or something like that, and it's just a better program for that. And then you can see all the stuff that I leave out because it's like I'm going to do it as color lines, all this Miles Morales stuff. And
so see the scorpion horse has moved. Was there like compositionally? What happened?
Well, and I felt like no matter where you put the scorpion horse, he pretty much communicates his idea. But I wanted to do the very Jameson-esque Dutch with all the pictures of Spider-Man and. In the color, I think Joe, you were telling me that you should say Plan A or Plan B.
Oh yeah, Dutch always has a plan.
But I think that they were actually too small to read in the print version.
Oh,
they were so small.
April Fools.
Hey, whatever. Now you have an Easter egg. If you couldn't read it in print, that's what it says.
Well, I guess the horse movement too. You didn't have to worry about drawing the horse's butt.
I didn't get to experience drawing the horse's butt.
I apologize.
Too bad.
Wait till next year.
That's always the scary part. You're afraid your wife's going to walk into the room when you're drawing a horse butt.
Right.
You're like, what are you doing?
And she's like, well, it must be Tuesday. But then, let's see, so the scorpion horse, and then the little, the guy, again, I can't remember people's names, but it was like the native guy or...
Is that Charles?
Charles
as Mr. Negative
as
there?
Mr. Negative, yeah.
Okay.
And then Sadie as Black Cat.
That works.
She's more Sadie than Black Cat. I guess I figured the position she's in is more Black Cat-esque.
Yeah. Well, and the mask really goes a long way for that, I think. Yeah.
And then not having the space bar to scroll with. Oh yeah, and then somebody was going in on, they wanted Doc Ock, but as Brock.
Yeah.
From so Doc Brock. That got a lot of groans from other people, and I'm probably the only other one going like, "Oh yeah, we definitely got to do that."
What I like about that now in retrospect, because I was probably one of the groaners, is that that you see this and it works visually. It's like, okay, yeah, it's like
It's a
Brock.
Dr. Octopus guy.
Yeah. But it's then when you think about it, it's like a joke that's not apparent in the image until you just think about it yourself. It's like, Doc Brock. Oh. Yeah. Boo.
Boo. Yeah, then you yourself can say boo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the World Serpent as the I mean, there was always a thing where like Dr. Connors as the lizard always had his one sleeve sort of folded up.
Yeah.
And then I just thought it was funny that both sleeves because he's a snake. I don't know. It's
no arms. This one has no arms.
This is what I sort of chuckle to myself while I'm in my studio. And then the Kingpin. And I didn't even make him look like the one in the game. I just made him look like classic sort of 70s Kingpin with the ascot and the
I don't think anyone noticed.
Right. He's a fat white
one.
guy. He's the Kingpin.
Yeah.
And but the little jewel at the top of his cane is on this plinth or whatever.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Right. It's
Okay, yeah, that's a
my
good one.
good joke.
Yeah.
Too bad.
You're doing it, Zander.
But yeah, so then Miles and Spider-Ham, and then somebody said that it looked like Spider-Ham was just standing behind Spider-Man, so I gave him like guts coming out of his neck, blood.
A little blood drop. Yep.
Oh, and then I don't even think this showed up on the print version, but like all those little things that are on the walls that show you where to climb.
Oh, yeah,
I made a
yeah.
little spider thing.
Wow. I missed that too.
Wow. Well, I just and I'm disappointed in myself that I basically just looked and copied this axe. And I was like, I could have done like a flow chart or some like really dumb joke. But I was, sometimes you just run out of jokes.
I'll tell you what, that probably also would have been too small to notice in print.
Oh, probably. And then. So anyway, I thought I left this super open because I figured it was just going to be words.
Yep.
And so I didn't put any light on him. I didn't,
That's what we thought too, actually. And then we mocked it up both ways with like the text all the way across the bottom and the text off to the side. And I was on team. I liked it all the way across the bottom, but the votes panned out that I was by far in the minority, and most people just liked the way it looked off in the corner there. So that's what happened.
No, you don't want to block those nice looking knees.
Man, those are some hot spider knees.
And it was super fun too. I mean, the background stuff, it ends up being more like jokes, but in the foreground, it's really kind of fun to actually get to draw things in detail because they're big enough. But it's like, these, the sort of making a Blades of Chaos shooting web shooter was kind of fun. Like you realize, these design elements are really beautiful, obviously, in these games, and so it's really fun to draw them and and then cross this thing, whatever it is, with a bandolier of bullets, and then a shotgun and then an axe, and it's neat to sort of put all those things together. And I'm just really copying from their designs. You want them to be pretty familiar.
Yeah.
And I don't draw guns very often, and so it was kind of fun to draw this cool revolver shooting webs.
What, like Todd McFarlane style web?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Those are almost become canonical. Like that. Yeah. Everybody wants to draw them that way now.
Wait. So there's a Todd McFarlane style of web?
Well, yeah, because in the '60s or probably on into the '80s, they were kind of just a couple lines going the direction of the webs, and then they would kind of zigzag across. It was Steve Ditko was hitting those deadlines no matter what. So, but like Todd McFarlane is a maniac. He's a great artist, but he's also like has no problem overdrawing, webs and putting these little sort of loop-de-loops around them.
Oh, okay.
Kind of binds them together. He was also the guy who put chains on Spawn's costume and drew them over and over again. And it sucks drawing chains. Like, you put all this time into them, people are like, yeah, chain. No one cares.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I suppose if that's part of your main character and you're just drawing that time and time again.
Oh yeah.
You think he just had like, if you copy pasted links that he would just like move that over.
Obviously he was working on paper, he wouldn't have been doing that. But I don't know. He just had this sort of overdrawing aesthetic, and that was part of what was good about his, or like new and exciting about what he did.
Yeah.
And he could hit deadlines while doing it. So I guess people were like, whatever you want to do.
More power to him.
More power to him. And so the other thing that was kind of, I thought, helpful when I was trying to divide them into two things, it's like, well, God of War takes place on mountains all the time. So it's always this really like blue and sort of, sort of neutral environment. Whereas Red Dead takes a lot, has a lot of dusk scenes and fire lit and stuff. And so it was kind of fun to sort of, I can't do that, but to sort of make the same sky, but basically have it divided by sides and say, okay, this is the warm half and this is the cold half.
Yeah.
And made it and then Spider-Man was pretty neutral, but had sort of warm light coming from the left and cold light coming from the right. So, and I thought that was kind of fun. I thought that was a nice aesthetic, workaround.
Yeah.
That helped this thing kind of match up. It wasn't confusing to look at, I guess.
Yeah. As always, I am very, very happy with how this year's art turned out.
Yeah, that was really fun. I mean, I was just like, I'm drawing Spider-Man. That's a win for me.
So let's pull up the final version again.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh,
and then
zoom out.
So that's what we're talking about with the words down in the corner there, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Are there any other little things you want to point out here? We hit the major bases.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to like if you take this out, like it's kind of fun to take out like, things like. I thought that the right-hand side was a little bit plain, and I think everything was kind of touching each other and not looking very distinct. So you put this sort of haze across there. You put more glow in at the firelight over here. This is all the. I also had to put like a glow on this. Actually, if you look at the gun, it kind of doesn't stand out. And so instead of really affecting the background, what I did is I just added like a super hot highlight, on there. And that kind of made it stand out from things that were just yellow highlights. And it's kind of fun to, that is not what I was looking for. Boo. Oh yeah, so there's just the sky that, that I obviously it's not very interesting, but the idea that you can kind of get this warm look over here and a cold look over here. There's the ground. God, it's so ugly when you just take all this stuff away. And then the flats. I always think this is a fun thing to look at because it's like, you realize I had to basically redraw this whole thing, because you can almost see exactly what everything is.
Yeah.
And all those effects.
I like it best with the lines.
Yeah.
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 I would
Me too.
keep doing it that way.
Okay, I will.
The one with just the skies. I don't know. Maybe
it's okay. You might think
taste.
You might think I was kind of underdoing it this year.
I don't think Marvel would go for it.
They'd be like, "This is fine. It doesn't have Spider-Man in it. We won't sue you."
It's in the name.
Right? It's just
people assume he's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that
should we give Zander a chance to plug his stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I was going to bring that up actually. Zander talks about himself as not a big deal, despite the fact that you have a multi-year comic that you not only draw but write.
Yeah.
Kaiju Max.
It's I don't know why they still let me do it. It's so fun, It's about a prison for giant monsters, but it's like Oz, and so there's gangs and drugs and stuff, and and everybody is just like, they come up to the reactions I get are really interesting because some people are like, oh, I love it, like it's kind of a cartoonist comic, like there's a lot of technique in it, I hope, and but then some people, like one time, and I've probably mentioned this before, but like. Someone was interviewing me, and so maybe like 10 minutes in, he kind of stops and maybe turns off the recorder and goes, "I just want to say something. You're really nice." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Your comic's so awful. Like it's so mean spirited and gruesome, and you're just really a nice person." And I'm like, I don't really know what to say to that, but thank you very much. Like, it turns on the thing again. Okay, back to talking about
The depraved
murder.
Zander Cannon.
I know. And it happens kind of a lot. Not quite so obviously usually, but
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was just in Chicago for this weekend, and that was for the C2E2 show, and that was fun.
What does C2E2 stand for?
Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like E3, but more.
More.
Yeah.
Hey, Zander, what if I want to catch up on your comic book? Is there a convenient way to do that?
Funny you should ask.
Thank
There's
you.
a media giant called Amazon, and you can order it from there. But and that's great if you write a review. Also, get it from your local comic shops. That's how they know what to order.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is when people have a pull list or.
Is there a collected
There are. It's funny.
package?
You should ask again.
Come on, I'm trying to help you out here, buddy.
We're really prescient here today. We see it coming.
There are 3 trade paperbacks, and a 4th is on the way. There's also a hardcover. We've now started to do these sort of ultimate, sort of kaiju-sized edition, and it's a 9x13 hardcover. It's big. It's heavy. It has the first 12 issues in it, and it has annotations in case you don't know all your 70s kaiju movies by any chance. And then it's got the original scripts, the original pitch, it's got a bunch of movie reviews of kaiju movies, and it's the all-in-one package.
Yeah. So that's for people who, once they get the paperback, they're like, I love it.
I love it.
Then they'll get the big collector's
Right.
thing. Probably.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing that people say to me. They're like, I keep buying this comic book. Like, I buy the original issues, and then I buy the trade paperbacks, and then I have to buy this hardcover. And I'm like, I'm sorry to do this to you. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not intentional. It is actually intentional.
Yeah, not that sorry.
Completely.
Yeah.
That's how you're able to stay so lavishly dressed. You
Yeah,
guys
you can't see,
this.
but I look a little bit like Elton John with my flowery.
Very foppish.
Very foppish.
I didn't know they made tails that long in tuxedos.
Well, only if you have all the money that I have.
All right. Well, Zander, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks for having
for
me.
the video. Thanks for the art for Game Infarcer. And
Absolutely.
we hope to see you next year.
I can't wait.